Hi everyone, it's me, your friend, CCP Convict, and welcome to the latest episode of the New Eden Review Dev Show, or NERDS, as we like to call it. The late, great American astronomer Carl Sagan once said that humanity is the universe's way of knowing itself. This show is my way of knowing what the hell is happening in EVE Online. And to that end, I'm joined by community manager CCP Swift and community developer CCP Jotunn to talk about some of the things that have been happening in EVE Online recently.
I don't have any Carl Sagan quotes prepped.
Yeah, that was pretty.
He just busted that one out like out of
just
nowhere.
right off the
that was
dome.
incredible.
I thought of it while I was in the bathroom just now.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
I was kind of shocked. I realized this is a much different show than the one that I do on Fridays.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah. A ton of cool stuff has been happening in the EVE universe. Stuff that players have been doing, stuff that the universe has been doing, and we got the big wigs
things we've done too.
Yeah, we've done some stuff.
We help.
True.
Yeah. Big wigs. I like that. Okay, keep that going. I feel pretty good.
All right. So the one exciting thing that's been happening in New Eden that a lot of people have been talking about lately is what's become dubbed the War in Heaven.
Yes.
It's like a big wormhole kerfuffle.
Yes.
That's been going on for a few months and seems to have completed now, run its course.
So to give some context, the War in Heaven was actually a war that started at the beginning of last year. It started, I believe, either March or April of last year. And what it was a collection of groups, including that was led by Singularity Syndicate, but led by, it was a coalition, including my own group, Turbo Feeder Glory at the time, and a handful of others, Whole Control, Forsaken Few, Sugar, Atrax Hollow, and, then some help from some other parties as needed.
Honorable
Third parties, of course, only the most honorable third parties in Bob's Blessed Wormhole space.
Space Bushido is stronger
something
nowhere
like,
than it is in wormhole space.
Something like that. Yeah. Something like that. But we, there's C6 wormholes are obviously really, really valuable, and we decided we wanted to try and wrest control of the C6 holes away from Laser Hawks, who own the majority of them. And they kicked off the War in Heaven. We lost that war pretty badly. In fact, pretty profoundly badly. Almost every group that was involved in the war collapsed or surrendered in pretty short order, my own included.
That's kind of impressive.
It's the way it goes.
Yeah.
It was a pretty total victory, all things considered. We took Cyclone Fleets out one time, and that was the end of it. That was Cyclone Fleets. It's not worth it, team. It's not worth it. Cyclone Fleets, never again. Anyway, all this to say, while all those groups eventually kind of fail cascaded in their own way or reshaped and reformed under different colors, one group did not, and that group was We Forsaken Few, who lived in a C4 wormhole called, it was a C4 pulsar wormhole called Hoth.
Now, what are the effects of a pulsar?
So a pulsar is obviously the different wormholes have different kind of effects. The most common, of course, is a vanilla, just a standard hole. There's no different effects there. But then you have a variety of different ones. The pulsar effect is a buff to shield efficacy.
Mm-hmm.
It also gives you an increase to signature radius. So missiles hit better in a pulsar just because your sig is much bigger. So people like to fly shield fleets. Obviously, Ravens are very strong in pulsars. Phoenix Navies, turns out, are extremely strong in pulsars. And we've seen some kind of ludicrous numbers, especially from really high-end faxes and high-end dreads. Some of the comps that these groups will fly. I mean,
because the higher class wormhole you're in, the more profound the effects are too.
Correct.
So a C1 pulsar isn't going to have, compared to a C6 pulsar,
exactly.
The C6 is going to have way more bonuses to those things.
One of the more famous C4 or C5 pulsars is I don't know if they actually call it this, but the common what I know it as is Laser Hawkistan. That's where Hawks live. Sorry, brand. Just I am what I am. They live in a C5 pulsar, and that, again, their comps are really, really strong in that C5 pulsar. Singularity Syndicate, before the war, lived in a C5 or a C6 not Red Giant, I'm sorry, Wolf Riot called Zion. Wolf Riot's big bonus to armor efficacy and small weapon damage. So they had a lot of Rapid Light Legions where they're kind of go to when they were in their home. It was quite a bit of damage. And also, the application of Rapid Light Legions that spit out 1,500 DPS are kind of nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
and the range, they can reach out and touch it too.
Yeah, they absolutely can. So, Hoth was a C4 pulsar, so big, big shield numbers, big number go up, and it absolutely did in there too. But some time ago, I'm pretty sure it was before the war, though somebody in chat, I'm sure, will correct me on this. they did anchor a keep star in their C4.
Yeah, that's super rare. For
Extremely
wormhole space.
rare. There have only been, there have probably been less than 20 keep stars in wormhole space total throughout its entire existence. In fact, there was only one other in wormhole space before this. Actually, I'm sorry, there were two. One of them was destroyed earlier this year. And that one belonged to the Hull Control, or specifically the Avanto Corporation of Hull Control.
Finnish Corp.
Finnish Corp. Yep.
Oh, that was getting muted.
You're gonna want to mute that one. That's not nearly as polite as it gets used. So sorry, chat. Just throwing out some swears, no big deal. That's just anyway.
Yeah, carry on. Yeah,
moving on.
Yep.
Moving on. So yes, that one was destroyed earlier this year, and then this one exists. The other one that exists is a C2 keep star, actually, that Goran Clade owns, the Feather Tar. Goran Clade has a keep star that I'm pretty sure they anchored back before we instituted cores. And there's a whole big kerfuffle because when cores were first introduced, they couldn't get a core into the C2.
Hole. Yeah, because the hole's too small.
So it was kind of grandfathered in.
Yeah.
But they have that one there, and that one actually, this same coalition of groups, the groups that evicted. Well, we'll get to this in a second, but the group that evicted Forsaken Few over the weekend also tried to evict that hole earlier this year, and I mean they infilled 500 interceptors or something with just as many pilots. So it was pretty rough. So
for wormhole space, that's
a ton. Yeah. So to go back to the story about the war in heaven. So the war ends. Forsaken Few is basically the last holdout. They didn't really accept any surrender conditions at the end of the war. They basically just said, yep, we're going to go home, and I guess if you want to come after us, come after us. They had it was a pretty strong grid. They had anchored their keep star, and then they had 2 Satios, a couple forts, and all of this was sitting around a Death Star POS in the center. There was all around this one Death Star POS. And fun fact about Death Star POSes, or POSes in general, those of you who are Eve boomers probably know this already, but if somebody's actually sitting in the, I know, sorry. So if somebody's actually sitting in the POS guns, you can basically hit the entire grid. And they were hoping that they'd be able to do that with this Death Star POS. If somebody showed up to their grid, they could fire upon those fleets basically with impunity from that POS. Problem with that, though, was that when the evicting coalition showed up, which was led by Hard Knocks. Hard Knocks, of course, storied wormhole alliance. They live in a C5 wormhole called Rage. They have been...
They've had a keep star before.
They've had a keep star before.
Yeah.
Fort Knox, the wreck of it is still in Rage.
Yep.
They made one of the more storied alliances in wormhole space, probably in the history of the game, if I was going to guess. Them, Laserhawks, Inner Hell kind of ran shop for a long time. During this most recent engagement, they came back. They had been on long-term hiatus before the War in Heaven. They came back for the War in Heaven and then proceeded to spank our asses. And then they've stuck around since, and they get fights. They do all kinds of cool content. But they organized this coalition. It was them, Laserhawks, No Vacancies, another C5 Pulsar group, and then a bunch of Blue Loot Not Included, which is a group called Outfit 418. There was Jabberbeck was there. A bunch of these little other smaller groups. Trina Campania was there, and they all kind of came together and went in, and they brought a staggering fleet of Rokes to come knock over these structures. In fact, they brought 300 Rokes.
Whoa!
It was an effort that took several days, as you can imagine, because you don't have that much mass going through wormholes, and it is much more mass effective just to shuttle these things in DSTs. So they just had constant DSTs running back and forth through whatever connections they had available, so they can move ships in, and they ended up getting over 300 Rokes into that hole. It was a staggering number.
Yeah,
but
DSTs being the deep space transports,
correct.
Which are sort of like the not cloaky but sort of beefier versions of blockade runners.
Yes,
basically industrial transport ships.
And
but
they have
a big fleet hangar.
Yes, big fleet hangar, and they are obviously much smaller in mass than a battleship is, and you can fit a battleship hull. I think you can fit a couple battleship holes inside the DST. So if you need to move battleships in mass, your better mass efficiency is to move
you
them.
IKEA them, you flat pack them, stick them in the DST. That goes in the hole. Then you take them out and unpack them.
Exactly. Exactly.
Cool.
So they, showed up. They set up their shop, and one of the first things they did was they knocked down that Death Star in the center of the fort grid and put up their own, which is super useful because that Death Star doesn't do a ton of damage with those long-range faction artillery, but what it can do is pause a Vortizar timer, and that's what they put it to use doing.
Yeah, that was so. I was looking in the system
Mm-hmm.
and was kind of watching some of the fights go down because it happens in the middle of our day, and I was like, I was curious to see what these wormholers were getting up to, and I saw this Death Star domination large control tower, domination artillery, shooting at this Keep Star and like sieging it, and I was like, is that a graphics glitch? What's going on?
No,
And,
it turns out.
They
Yeah.
were just keeping it paused with just the pause itself. It was super neat.
Because the timers came out pretty close to each other, and they didn't want. I mean, they could have split the fleet 50 ways and still probably had enough to pause all the structures. But just so everybody was kind of all in the same spot, they just keep the one fort paused with the structure. And I'm pretty sure that one structure, that one fort had like 50% of its damage done with just the pause, which is nuts in the year of our Lord 2025.
I'm just amazed that people are still finding new ways to use posses.
You're as
Like,
surprised as me.
After all this time, I'd never heard of that
Yeah.
being done before. That is
Same.
amazing. I guess technically that wouldn't have been possible pre-Citadel.
Yeah.
But that was still 9 years ago that they came in, and this is the first time I've ever seen
Yeah.
that tactic deployed anywhere. It's wild.
So the reason,
Players are crazy. When
They
it comes to engineering feats.
madness really
Yeah.
is what it is.
Well,
combining
when you're a
mechanics.
wormhole, you've got a lot of time by yourself just to think about
Spend a
stuff.
lot of time,
just-
staring into the abyss.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the thing is, so with this especially, Forsaken Few knew these guys were probably going to be coming at some point, right? They didn't really surrender at the end of the war. They didn't accept any terms and conditions. It was much more of a just, come get us if you want to get us. And so they had done a lot of work to prep, the what was going to be a huge fight whenever this coalition showed up. And when they showed up in force. I mean, it was a like I said, it was a huge number of ships. They infilled a 100-man vulture fleet on the first day just to get hull control and try and limit how much stuff Forsaken Few could get in and out. Forsaken Few, come to find out, actually had an opportunity on the first day to try and take hull control back and seemed to have the manpower and ships to do it, but kind of balked a little bit and probably could have acted more decisively and maybe would have saved their hull. But they were really hoping that other groups would be able to roll in. The problem with rolling so when I talk about rolling, we're talking about rage rolling, right? Rage rolling is the process of going into a wormhole that has a static wormhole. Static wormhole means in that wormhole, there will always be at least one kind of connection to one other wormhole of a certain type, right? So if you have a C5 static and you roll your wormhole, which means you put mass through it enough times that the wormhole collapses, you'll always get another C5 wormhole. It's always going to be random, but it's always going to be at least another C5 wormhole.
There's only so many C5 wormhole systems, so
Correct.
your rage roll, you just keep continually collapsing that static
Eventually-
wormhole.
Eventually
it's going to connect to where you want to go.
And it doesn't always happen as often as you would like it to, but things have been weird in the past. People have gotten really lucky, obviously.
You get two rolls and voila, there you are. It's
Yeah.
like when you sometimes you pop a filament and you're like, I want to get out of this region, and it takes you like 2 jumps away. You're
Exactly.
like,
It's
"God damn it,
exactly
now I've got
that.
to wait 15 minutes.
Yeah. And, it's and people will roll for days just to try and get into a certain hole, especially when big ops like this are happening, right? The problem is in high class space, so high class is C5s and C6s, called that because they have extra large connections, you can get capitals into them. So dreads, faxes, that sort of thing, not supers, namely. But the problem is it's really easy to roll C5s and C6 connections from C5s and C6s because you can send a fax or a carrier through a hole once, hot with its micro warp drive on to increase the mass, send it back and forth, and the hole will collapse. In C4 space, connections to a C4 are always going to be sub-capital sized. So you have to do math to figure out how many jumps exactly, because there's some
Gross.
variability
Not
there.
living in a
Math
C4.
sucks.
No,
Yeah,
let's
I
not go
honestly
there.
I hate it. It's one of the reasons why I moved out of C4 space, just because doing that kind of math sucks. Easier just turn brain off, send ship out, come back, that kind of thing. So, it's very hard to roll into a C4. There are more C4s as well. And it takes longer to roll those holes. So there were a couple groups trying to roll into them over the weekend, but those groups never got in. They just never really got the math never worked out in their favor. There was one group called Violence is the Answer. Vita is their corp ticker. They are they've lived in a C4 for a long time. They were constantly rolling. to try and get in, and just never had any luck. So they
Maybe
were probably
they were too mad at the wormhole.
it's possible they were
need to
too
just
angry.
Chill out a little.
If they just relaxed a little bit. You know, the thing is, though, and this is one of those things where people talk about, you know, how little things turn the tide, right? If they had gotten a connection, even one, right, then suddenly you have, you know, 200 dudes in shuttles ready to get in and sit into ships that Forsaken Few almost certainly had in their Keep Star, right? Like when they finally undocked, so for the climactic engagement, Forsaken Few undocked a fleet of 30 Phoenix Navies, a couple triage. You know, a handful of other capitals, some nags were in there as well. I saw a couple of Rorquals, like smart bombing Rorquals in there too, which is interesting. Whatever. And then they had a Thunderchild fleet of 30 Thunderchilds, and then a handful of other ships here and there. Against, to be very clear, a truly staggering, probably 500-man fleet from the HK Hawks coalition. And nearly, honestly, with a handful of small changes, I think they may have won that fight. Those capitals had huge amounts of EHP in the C4 Pulsar. It's you can get some stupid numbers on a PNI in a C4 Pulsar. Problem was they were active fit instead of, they probably should have been buffer fit for home defense. It would have just taken them too long to grind through them. But they killed 150 rogues. I mean, they absolutely blasted through the rogue fleet. They just didn't blast through the rogue fleet before the rogue fleet blasted through them. So
where does that, just briefly, where does that leave the state of wormholes now as you see it?
Yeah, I mean, wormholes are in an interesting spot. I think there are a lot of people who will probably look at the kind of coalition that formed over the weekend and say wormholes are kind of fundamentally broken. I don't hold that opinion. I don't feel that way. Wormhole space is still good. I mean, it's still, at least, I mean, obviously I'm a wormholer, by the way. I still think it's the best space in the game. For me personally, this is not the express written opinion of CCP Games. Just to be very clear, the CCP Jotunn official opinion is that wormhole space is the best space in the game for a lot of different reasons, but none of that stuff has changed. None of the things that make wormhole space great are any different. Is there a major power block right now? Absolutely there is. But that major power block formed because another major power block tried to, you know, wipe them off the map and then failed. So those guys are still around. It's not like they've gone anywhere, and they still, you know, are now interested in defending each other's interests because they're all war buddies. It is one thing to look at the state of wormhole space and say, oh, this is just another example of the blue donut showing up in my backyard, and I won't accept this. But, like, this is just the consequence of conflict. You know, people go to war, and they can't expect things to just go back to normal immediately afterwards. Like, will there come a time where this coalition falls apart? Maybe. Is it going to happen less than a year after the war ends? No, probably not. Like, that stuff just kind of sticks around. And
even if it does, sometimes like those bonds are still kind of loosely there.
Yes.
So they can like get right back into the
and that's the thing is, all of these groups still fight each other. You know, like that's the nature of wormhole space, is that you're always going to be in conflict with everybody else. And if you have a connection with somebody else, it doesn't matter if you've been homies before. I mean, I've gunned dudes down in the street who I've been like in fleets in
the space street.
Space streets, very clear. Space streets.
With internet guns.
Guns, space guns. You know, but like you enact violence upon each other as a form of love, I think. Really, killing is just a means of communication.
Really
if you think about it,
that whole phenomenon.
The wise philosopher once said, but you know, that, like I said, none of that has ever changed. People are still out there doing cool stuff. Cool fights are still happening all the time. I still think wormhole space is dope as hell. And I think people should give it a try. It is very easy for people to look at that 500-man blob and say, oh, I can't, there's not enough room for my group in wormhole space. But that's just not true. There's like, that happens because of a rare, unusual thing that happened in wormhole space, and I do not think that it should be necessarily indicative of like the standard health of the region. Is
there still generally kind of like a gentleman's or a gentle person's agreement amongst the powers that be through wormhole space, that if you see someone new start to fool around and C1s and C2s and things like that, you kind of maybe give them a bit of space?
It really kind of depends. I mean, I think you'd be shocked how many groups just kind of exist in wormhole space. As long as people undock and want to give or want to provide content of some form or another and aren't like giga toxic about it. Now, have I evicted small groups before because they were being shitters? In a previous life when I did not work for the company, yes.
Can't believe you were a bully.
I know. Listen, I just enacting
what type
space.
Of person does it take?
Space justice, CCP Swift. Space justice. I am vengeance. But you know, it's there's plenty of room in there, and most of like the groups that these groups go after are not the little groups, right? I mean, you're talking Forsaken Few had trillions of assets worth of stuff in that hole. I mean, they lost just in that one fight alone almost 800 billion-isk worth of dreadnoughts and battleships.
What I thought was pretty cool is they were like severely outnumbered, and I mean, you were saying that the battle could have gone either way, on some tactics, on allies coming in. But just from an onlooker's perspective, who's not really super into the wormhole meta, it looked like as soon as they hit on dock, they were going to just get obliterated.
Yes.
But they still hit on dock, and they still played it out. They still did the fight. I thought that was so cool.
There are a couple different things that play into that, and I think the biggest thing is in wormhole space, you always go into it knowing that you're going to lose everything, right?
Yeah.
We don't have asset safety to rely on, right? If you put something into a wormhole, that's it. It's done, right? If you can get it out, then great. But if you can't, it doesn't matter. So they are sitting here looking down the barrel of the gun that is going to kill them, space gun that's going to kill them, right? And they have to accept, are we just going to kind of like turn over and lay on our, put our bellies up and tuck our tail and call it good? Or are we going to undock and go for it? There was, just before the fight happened, the CEO of Forsaken Few, his name's Dreadfather. He, in local chat, made some comment about basically saying, I hope you all have enjoyed the bounty of structure timers we've provided for you. Good luck, have fun.
Nice.
And I don't know if there's anything that better encapsulates the spirit of like going down fighting than that. They were absolutely going to get killed. I mean, with the setup that they had, the moment they undocked, it was Jover. But they still
reminds
undocked.
me of the meme of the captain on the ship as it's sinking.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
still like,
I mean, with my last breath, I spitted thee.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And it's baller, dude. It's why I play the game. It's just dope shit. It's
Cool.
dope shit.
nice. And Lena Umber was there from the scope.
Lena Umber was
making
there from
her return.
Hell yeah. I think I saw her one
war
time
reporting.
zooming around in between the wrecks, getting some up close footage.
Yep.
She looks suspiciously like CCP Zealous, but
Yeah.
in
In the right light.
the right light,
you can tell.
So
Let's move from wormhole space into nullsec, because there was
Let's do
another sort of significant development recently. That was the news that Pandemic Legion is going to be leaving PanFam
Yeah.
and separating. And this is what's really cool, because obviously, CCP Jotunn has a wealth of insider knowledge about everything that went on wormholes, because he was involved in it. And we've got CCP Swift here, who has, is deeply connected to this whole situation.
He's their
Yeah.
dad.
Or historically, yeah.
Yes, he's their daddy.
Sort of. Maybe like like cool uncle.
He's,
Okay.
He's the dad who went out to get smoked.
Smoked and never came back.
Never came back.
When all the little
The absentee father.
all the little PL-lings go up to headline and they go, "Damn, when's Granddad going to be back?" It's like, I'm sorry.
They're watching TV and they're like, hey, headliner, why do I look more like CCP Swift than you?
That's really good.
A great mental image. But no,
Carry on.
there's a
Oh Jesus.
so in nullsec there's a lot of like there are a lot of alliances and they form these coalitions. PanFam is one of them. It's Pandemic Horde, Northern Coalition Dot, Pandemic Legion, Slice, a couple of their allies here and there, and they make up PanFam. At some point, sometimes Fraternity was in there before, but not really. At least not anymore since the beginning of the year. But it came out this week that Pandemic Legion were going to leave PanFam amicably. They weren't getting kicked out or anything. And they just wanted to kind of go separate ways, do their own thing a little bit. And we're not sure exactly where they're going to end up. We have some ideas, but they haven't really disclosed it yet. And it's kind of a really big shakeup in the nullsec meta, which we've been seeing a lot of since the beginning of the summer, just before the summer, when the Imperium kind of moved over to the bottom right of the map. So they became like living in the southeast instead of the southwest. Just reorganized everyone down there, moved very close to PanFam staging. At one point, their stagings were like 6 jumps apart, which is the closest they've been ever without being in like an actual active war.
That move to Tenerife was probably the most significant thing. But
Yeah.
I would say like maybe that the feeling that things were starting to change in nullsec, I would probably date that back to when Init announced that they were sort of doing like a friendly reset of Imperium, and they were going to stay in Fountain when the rest of Imperium sort of moved into like the southeast.
Yeah, exactly. So, right after Equinoxes was when they kind of all decided to do this, and it set a chain reaction as well, because all the other groups looked at Init and they said, well, if these guys can do it, yeah, sure, we can do it too. So they did a reset as well. So Frat and PanFam no longer blue.
Mm-hmm.
They're still friendly, but they don't have to be blue. They don't have any certain agreements in place. The Imperium did the same. They kind of like consolidated as well as they were consolidating in space. And so it really did create like a new dynamic, a shifting dynamic.
Very moving very slowly though, but it does feel
Yeah.
like, you know, like those bonds that have been like really tight for such a long time, because it's the same as you were talking about in wormhole space. People need mutual protection, right? So
Yeah.
it's always like N+1, you know, if I can get another buddy, I can maintain parity with the other guys, and the other guys go, oh, we want to get another alliance to join us, and it just keeps escalating. It actually feels like those sort of vines are starting to loosen now, and it's starting to fragment. Hasn't collapsed. You know, it's not like the everything in nullsec's just shattered and descended into war and chaos.
Yeah.
But it's like slowly disentangling
It's
itself.
a breathing out almost.
Yeah. And there are some like mechanics that are helping too. Like smaller groups can survive with Metanox income instead of having to hold swaths of space. There are like smaller objectives that you can fight over. You can fight over jump bridges. You can bubble camp jump bridges and be super annoying to people. And especially if you've got fewer blues, you can do that to more people. You can rob skyhooks. There's just like a lot more activities that you can do as a smaller to medium-sized group and still be, effective, still have the same way of life that you have, like SRP and stuff like that, and have a lot of content in there. So I think like all of these things are sort of playing into one another. And we're starting to see that, again, like you said, Convict, it is happening really slow, but it is neat to see it happen. And this is just another piece in that puzzle where Pandemic Legion are moving on from, a coalition that they in part built. PanFam, like the Pan
part,
is in there for Pandemic Legion and Pandemic
First three
Horde.
letters.
Exactly, that's actually the Pandemic Legion mascot.
Is this bear?
Yep, with their Alliance tournament medals.
Oh, I see.
On there. Yeah.
5 of them.
I think there's 6.
Oh, okay. Sorry, 6.
Sorry,
My mistake.
Who's counting?
My mistake. Let me ask you a question. So, when people talk about the actual like the ramifications of this leave, right? Let's call it a friendly breakup, right?
Yeah.
People.
And just as an aside, Taylor Swift announced a new album.
The two have anything to do with each other.
They probably do.
Okay, interesting. Taylor Swift announced the new album. CCP Swift, the artist formerly known as Elise Randolph, noted Swiftie.
Yeah.
And his group suddenly leaves PanFam. Very interesting, very curious. Connect that up, follow the money. All this to say, when people talk about the actual, I went way off the rails with that one. I'm sorry. I was a little Pepe Sylvia kind of. Anyway, when people talk about the actual ramifications of this thing, one of the questions that comes up often is like, what is Pandemic Legion actually contributing to PanFam right now? Because Pandemic Legion, obviously, not quite the superpower it used to be. Certainly, probably still has an abundance of wealth. Probably still has
a lot of very rich, very high SP, very experienced players.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was the dynamic at the very early, the kind of the beginning of the Pandemic Legion, Pandemic Horde relationship and formation of Horde. Is it was going to be a large number of people in Horde, just by virtue of their name, Horde, being kind of helped along by kind of veteran experience, veteran wealth, and just all that knowledge that Pandemic Legion had accumulated over the years. As Horde matured and got bigger, they became a superpower in their own right. They didn't just cultivate new players, or they didn't just absorb new players. They cultivated them. They learned. They created their own FCs. They have these very intricate programs to like train and like develop people. So Pandemic Legion, they didn't have the same like numbers contribution into the PanFam fleets, but they still had like FCs, scouts, these key people along helping out in the wars, helping out in the planning, helping out in kind of like deployments in these things. So, the fleets are going to go down in size by maybe 40 or 50 people. So it's not, it's noticeable, but it's not going to be like a huge end to Pandemic Horde or any of the PanFam fleets. But they will lose, like they'll feel a little bit of loss of knowledge in there, and they'll have to replace that. They are completely well equipped to replace it.
Certainly.
But what I'm really excited for is where kind of PL goes. Do they want to go to some place like LoSec, which is, as we've seen in the last couple of months, really popping off.
Yes.
Even the initiative moved down over to LoSec for a deployment. Not all of the initiative, but some of them went to Cormonen to kind of vibe in that area and just see if they can take part in any of the action in there. There's a lot of stuff going on in LoSec, a lot of like very fun fights. that PL could kind of
That would actually be really exciting because then you'd have like this sort of triad counterbalance to like Snuffed and Deepwater Hooligans, and have put Panda. And like for me, LoSec kind of feels like the traditional home of like PL anyway. Like you go back far enough, like before they became a self-holding entity. They were just mercenaries and scaring everyone.
There's been a lot of talk recently about the culture shift that has happened in LoSec. Maybe it's not even a culture shift, but like just how that culture has kind of matured over time and how it compares to other parts of space. I had a couple of really good conversations recently, namely specifically with Mr. Bear That Cares. Mr. That Cares, of course, is as is known professionally.
Mimitar Fleet Alliance.
Mimitar Fleet Alliance.
Low-key, one of my favorite alliances in the game.
They have
kind of
nailed
popped up on the scene.
so many of the things that just like itch in the back of my brain. They've got the branding down.
Meme game is
They've got the meme game is so
Very
good.
strong, yeah.
They have a strange rat wife thing that they've been talking about a lot on Reddit. Very unusual, but I like the energy. And they actually have a great soundboard in their Discord too. A lot of
critical piece of infrastructure
always
that any alliance needs in order
very
to thrive.
important. Great soundboards. But all this to say, like, those groups, and that's not just them. Obviously, Sedition's the same way. Deepwater's the same way. Snuffed Out obviously has never had any issue dropping on anybody with so much as a pulse. So seeing these groups be willing to drop dreads, drop caps over what seems like insignificant assets to other groups, but with impunity and with a sort of gleeful abandon is really, really fun to watch and participate in.
That's where things can get interesting, right? Because now if, and this is a big if, we don't know where PL is going to go or where anyone else is going to go. But if PL do go to LoSec and they start kind of like thriving and rebuilding in that thing, they become kind of like a bit of a siphon for people in PanFam that have flown with PL before. And they're thinking, maybe I don't want to be in nullsec right now. Maybe I want to like try out this LoSec.
Sure.
Oh, I can go to this friendly face over here. It's just a very easy transition, and you kind of know what to expect. You still have those friendships and those friend groups that you've made along the way. So it could act as a neat little siphon, rebuild, PL as a LoSec entity, and just kind of keep poking at the craziness that is LoSec right now.
Now, I guess the real question is, if PL does move to LoSec, are we going to see a reemergence of the Dread pilot Randolph?
I'm washed. No, I'm still flying around in that area of space. I kind of fly around on different characters.
Okay, I see.
But it is tricky because as a former FC, I like FCing and I like that level of control.
Yeah.
But I don't have the same like level of time, a level of just like knowledge and skill where I can lead people in that way. So just kind of following along, doing my own thing.
I think you're a great leader.
Thank you.
When you're block FCing, you're not just like in a ship, a single client calling shots on the grid. You've got like, you're listening to like 4 different command channels in one ear, and you've got like 5 scouts and cynos on other clients. So it's like, it
is not just
it's a lot going on,
and it's not just sitting there going like, "Oh, shoot at the closest target," or sort by alphabetical and start here.
Yeah,
it's a fun rush as well. Like it's incredibly rewarding to do, and like the planning involved in it is my favorite part. But it is really time consuming. For every fight that you see, and other FCs can attest to this as well. There's been like 10 hours into prep for that thing.
Yeah.
And for every fight you see, there's 5 others that didn't happen that you still prepped for and still planned for and still.
And the other guy didn't show up for the timer or something like that. So all that effort was kind of went to waste. But you can't take the chance that the time you decide to phone it in, that's the next BTAC-R or something like that. And you're not ready, and all your people just get absolutely spun.
But it is like at the end of the day, it's really cool to see like these moves being made, even if PL goes somewhere else, even if they become part of the Imperium. Very unlikely, but anything's possible.
I've heard an invite has been sent out
for I think just me.
I don't know. I think Headliner got one too.
Nice.
What's the least likely thing? Go on, just what's the most crazy thing that PL could possibly do?
I think actually going to the Imperium would probably be
it'd be yes.
Yeah.
It would be not just be going to the Imperium. It'd be if like habitual euthanasia joined Goonswarm.
Yeah. I think it would be pretty unlikely.
Like Y dot into
yes, exactly that.
But I mean, maybe joining another coalition, maybe hanging out within it. Wormhole space is not off the table.
And wormhole space would be great.
That's what I'm going to say. My wild prediction. PL has seen what's just gone down. They're like, this cannot stand. We're going to go take C6 back from Laserhawk.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. This is not even a joke. I looked the other day on Zedkill, because I look at Zedkill from time to time. I am a degenerate. And PL has about 100 active characters right now. They fit in perfect. If they keep that level of activity up, they fit in basically perfectly.
If not wormhole sized, why?
Yeah.
If not wormhole size, then why not a wormhole?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
so
high SP characters, blingy ships, just
blingy ships.
jam a hole full of faxes and dreads and
Violence, so much violence.
Yeah. Also loves theory crafting. Wormhole
loves
space
theory.
is fun to theory craft in.
There was a whole. You want to talk about, just to use a quick aside, one of the big things that had to happen, obviously, over the weekend or the last weekend during the Hoth eviction was the math that goes into figuring out how much stuff you actually get through a wormhole. And it's always a fun thing whenever two groups are about to engage with each other, figuring out both how do I get our capitals through here in such a way that we also have room for our subcapitals, and then also our last cap that has to come through at the end to close the hole. And it's a lot of fun. I think the boomers and PL could really enjoy that kind of high level math.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
There you go. They have the older education system, so they know how to count.
Yep. PL.
There you go.
Wormhole space. I can slay a C5. Not me specifically. Mark Resurrectus, my alter ego. But not that one either, to be very clear.
All right. Well, that's enough about you. Now let's talk about us for a little bit to
us.
round this out. Yeah. So we had a patch come out the other day, which had
Yep.
a couple of small but really, really useful changes that come along into it. First of all, something that people have been asking for a long time is we've added a 5th daily goal to the Air Daily Goals program, and this one is purely activity based. It's only you only have to travel 3 jumps.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's a variety of jumps. It's not just gates. You can go through wormholes. You can take a bridge. You can take a conduit jump.
Yeah.
You can take an Enzablex. Like anything that moves you,
moves you
a
around.
filament will count. And it's a really nice way to be able to kind of get your Air Daily Goals finished and not have to do like a crazy variety of things. Because maybe you're in an area of space where you can't necessarily go out and do one of the other tasks that you got for that time. And you could always just complete those anyways. But, adding this thing, which is always going to be there as like the always on 5th type of daily goal.
Yeah.
It's just a nice way of just giving people more opportunities to do stuff, and also encourages people to kind of like move around a little bit, which is when activity happens.
It's a good way to incentivize people just to undock in the first place. I mean, there, a lot of, and not to say that the other daily goals don't do that, but this one, I think because it's a fairly low bar to reach, you're going to see more people just undocking and moving around, even if it's in high sec, just to kind of gate around in the area where they live at the time, or even if it's just around there staging somewhere. Just getting people moving and doing things is good. I know people will probably look at this and say like, "Oh, this is."
Well, if you've got 250 million SP and like 50 bill in the bank, you're probably going to be like, "Oh, so what?" But I mean, if you're a relatively newer player and just a handful of SP now and then is a big deal for you.
Yeah.
Or if you're just flying around, you don't even know they're there, and you suddenly get little ping. Hey, you got to think
That
like the
is
little dopamine
one of my
thing
favorite-
Of like, hey, you got to think. You're like, oh, neat.
Yeah. One of my favorite consequences, because obviously my characters are fairly high SP for the most part.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite consequences of the Air Daily system is that every so often I'll be doing something and get the little ping. I'll be like, "Oh, hey,
Yeah.
I did a thing.
I
did a
killed
thing."
25 NPCs.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also something that came from the community as well.
Yeah.
As we've been kind of like iterating and changing the Air Daily Goals to be like as effective as they can be, this idea came out from just community discourse of like, hey, can we just have like an extra one that's like maybe movement based or a little bit more generic? Some people did meme about just like taking jumps, but there are some other really good ideas in there as well. And yeah, I think the team kind of looked at it and they said, you know what, it's good. Let's have a generic one. Let's make sure it's applicable to as many types of areas of space as we can do. And that way you can always like do one of your like your little dailies.
Yeah. It's not earth shattering, but it's just nice.
Yeah.
It's just a nice.
I just think it's neat.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think it's neat.
Yeah.
And also coming in that same patch was also some sort of technical changes to the client, which has improved performance for people who are running multiple clients.
Yes.
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
Really cool.
A lot of the people have like reached out, especially people that are on kind of lower end machines or people that are running into like CPU or RAM issues. And the team has been really taking back those reports, trying to refine things up. And that came out, this week. And we've seen a lot of people with performance increases,
Already,
not only
yeah.
with multiple clients, but just on one client. And yeah, we also had a mass test yesterday to kind of test out some more things with Destiny, which is our physics engine. So shout out to everyone who came to the test to help out there. Singularity will be up until Friday. So if you want to go on there and kind of tinker about, you can also help us test. but you can do it on your own pace.
It is always funny, this sort of thing, because obviously client performance is always kind of a hot button issue whenever we change anything. And the thing I feel like people, sometimes forget is that it is a lot of inconsistency in there too. Everybody's got different machines.
Yeah.
This is the kind of consequence of developing a software that runs on PC or Mac or any of these systems where everybody's running with different stuff. I can say with some certainty, the machine that I run my game on after the change that moved a lot of that processing power to the CPU, I saw huge improvements. That wasn't the case for everybody, but I did specifically. So whenever we talk about these changes, the more information that we can get back from players about their specific cases, and not just my machine isn't working the way it's supposed to.
Yeah,
that's cool. I get that, and I understand that it's frustrating. But if you can provide us with screenshots, video, logs out of Loglight, any of this stuff, that's huge, and it's so helpful for our engineering team. Because then they can start to look at, on a case-by-case basis, what's causing these issues on all different kinds of machines.
Yeah.
So
there's like a really technical answer to what they did, and I'd be doing it a disservice by trying to explain it, but it has helped.
Hell yeah. Good job.
Right on.
We did
right
it.
on.
All right. I think we can probably bring this thing in for a landing now.
Yeah.
Because we've been going for a bit longer than I anticipated we would have material to cover, but it's been really cool conversation. Anything that we want to put a spotlight on coming up the next few weeks?
AT Feeder is coming up soon.
Yes. At the end of this month, we'll have the Alliance Tournament feeders, which is the qualifier for the main Alliance Tournament.
Yep.
It's going to be really exciting, a lot of explosions. So
Yeah.
make sure to check out CCP TV for it.
I think it's going to be really interesting this time because the way we've got like groups going in. So, it's more like, the World Cup or something like that.
Yeah.
So you see these teams playing each other. And I think that makes it a lot more engaging just from a speculation, like who's going to get out of this group. And
And
how
all you
it's
have to
gonna
do is win. It's super easy.
Yeah,
all
just
your team
win,
has to
right?
do is
Like,
win.
yeah.
Very simple. I don't know why people don't just do that. It's just win.
Yeah. It seems so simple, but
Yeah.
it's just it eludes so many people.
I love AT season because AT season turns EVE Online players who, on the whole, and speaking as one myself, on the whole, are fairly paranoid and fairly kind of cagey with their internal workings, into some of the most obsessive, you want to talk Pepe Sylvia, wall full of doctrines and just lines between them. I've never seen it. I obviously know a bunch of people on a bunch of different teams, and once AT season kicks off, they all retreat to their bunkers, and they don't come out until the feeders with their their master plans, and it's always
and it's fun to watch to see what these teams come up with. And one of my favorite parts about just all things Alliance Tournament is you have these teams. Some of them practice together. Some of them just practice only by themselves.
indeed.
And a lot of them end up coming to very similar conclusions, completely independently from one another. And then someone will come out of left field with something that they think everyone else has come up with,
Yeah.
but is completely
Yeah.
different and kind of just throws everyone off. And even a team that you wouldn't consider being someone who's won the Alliance Tournament before, or maybe someone that maybe is outside of the top four, they can come in and really shake things up, and even knock big teams out of the feeders.
I know there's been ATs where in the fourth or fifth match, some teams brought in a comp, which is a completely new approach, and the other teams who are watching that are like,
Yeah.
quick, get on CC now. We've got to start testing against this,
Yeah.
and then wait for the kill feed to come out, and then okay, make their ships, and now we got to see how it goes up against all of our comps.
It is always so funny when, especially with the feeders, because when you see comps that people bring to the feeders, you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt, because not a lot of times, especially for top end teams will have pilots that fly their ships well, right? That is something that they have pretty consistently across the board that some other teams might not. Other teams might have more meta comps, but they don't have quite the same level of experience on their teams.
Yeah.
So those top end teams might not always bring the meta comps for the feeders because they don't want to give away their hand. So they fly something that is perhaps less optimal, but will still win them enough matches to get into the AT, just so that they have the chambers loaded by the time they get there to the tournament proper.
Yeah, just all the mind games that go into Alliance Tournament are really
mind
fun
games.
to watch. It's fun to kind of put yourself in the perspective of a team, even if you're not a competitor, even if it's something that you're not necessarily interested in.
Indeed.
Just kind of seeing what they do and trying to reverse engineer what kind of went into it and all the planning and all just the sweaty moments.
There's a lot of sweat.
Created it.
Yeah, it's a lot of
it's
sweat.
a lot of fun. So definitely make sure to check it out.
Yeah.
Also want to give a shout out to November
Oh, yeah.
and Eve Seattle meetup. The
month?
first
That was
November, the Eve player.
Oh,
November with a 3.
I thought you meant
Yeah.
November as in the month of November. Like, oh, hell yeah.
It's a great month.
November
Let's
is
go,
a great month.
go
yeah.
November.
But yeah, that was last weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah, Eve Seattle. The first Eve Seattle meetup was
Nice.
last week, and shared some pictures. It looked like it was a ton of fun. They went up to the Space Needle as well. They did a whole bunch of
yeah.
crazy cool
I'll
stuff.
see if we can get those
Very
pics and like put
fitting.
them here.
Yeah.
You know,
Just-
for-
Yeah.
for
Always
people
love
see.
to see like and Convict. This is something that you talk about all the time. It's just like your local Eve meetup.
Yeah.
It's just this fun thing to go to, especially if it's your first one. You can just show up. No one knows what you look like. If you don't like it, you could just have a beer in silence
He'd be
and go
like,
home.
Stand at the other end of the bar and look at those nerds. I'm
Yeah,
hanging out
yeah.
with them and then walk out. No, I met November at Eve New Orleans this year, and he was telling me about like his plans for his meetup. He was really excited about
Nice.
it, which is cool.
Very nice.
So yeah, he's actually an Australian as well, living in Seattle, and we went to some. I can't remember the name of it now. Oh no, it was Vic's Kangaroo Cafe.
Oh my God.
So they dragged me along
Oh
to that
my
place. That's
God.
apparently where they always go at Eve New Orleans. So they dragged me along to there.
Was
But
it more or less authentic than like Outback Steakhouse?
oh yeah, it was actually. I think the actual Vic is an Australian guy or an
Okay,
American who's
good.
lived in
Good,
Australia
good,
for a long
good.
time. He wasn't there, but he brings back all this sort of memorabilia and stuff put on the walls. But
Sick.
I was able to get myself like my first Cooper's Pale Ale, which is like my favorite beer in Australia
Hell yeah.
for the first one in like years.
Nice.
You know,
Nice.
so
Very good.
That was really cool.
Cool.
All right then. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, CCP Swift and CCP Jotunn.
Thank you.
Maybe for the next episode of these will be coming out, we'll have a deeper dive into the AT feeders. But for now, thank you for watching this episode of Nerds. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.
Let's go get some ice cream.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, ice cream sounds good.
Ice cream sounds great.